I'm Kerry Peters, a recognized thought leader in the Microsoft Dynamics community and a Microsoft MVP for business applications. Welcome to the Get Your New View podcast. Keep listening to learn how we work with frustrated business, central, and NAV users who struggle to use their systems and find the answers that they need. We teach them to truly understand how the system can support their business processes to make immediate and lasting improvements. As a result, they get more done in less time, make better business decisions, and even love their system. In this next season of the Get Your New View podcast, I'd like you to meet Kim Congleton. Kim and I are the co-owners of New View Strategies, and this season, we'll be talking with you all about change management and cheese. Hey everyone, it's Kerry and Kim, and we're back talking about change management and cheese, and we're going to talk about what happens when you've changed too fast. The illustration I can think of the best for this idea is something that I do all the time with my very most favorite cheese. What do you do when you've liquefied your Brie? I am most likely to have a Brie in my refrigerator at all times because I really do love it as a cheese to snack on. And one of my favorite things to do with it is to heat it up. Put it on a little French bread with some apples or pears or grapes and just have that as a meal. And I have sometimes been known to be an impatient person. And this carries forward into my cooking. Kim's laughing because she knows that is true. And I'm not the best cook, but this is one thing I do over and over again. I've done it for many years, and it aggravates my family a great deal. I will put my Brie in the microwave to soften it, right, to liquefy it, and I will set it for too much time, and I will completely liquefy this beautiful cheese. I've tried doing it in the oven. I had a gorgeous Brie en croûte that I put in the oven, and I baked it until it liquefied. So I'm no longer allowed to heat the Brie without supervision. This is probably good advice when we think about changing too fast as well, as we talk about the consequences, right, of changing too fast, right? So obviously, I put my Brie in there for too much time and rushed the process, right? Too high a temperature. If I would have put it on a lower temperature with a shorter amount of time, I would have done great. But the consequence that we see of people changing too fast are most often going to be failed implementations. And the consequences from a failed implementation are absolutely wide-reaching. Do you want to talk about some of those, Kim?
Yeah, I think especially in this day and age and how fast the business and technology changes, if you push it too fast, there's just a range of things that can happen, right? Your team gets burnt out, you lose key resources. The liquefying the Brie really is like an awesome analogy because you can pretty much just obliterate your whole team or even your whole business. We have seen and we've all heard the horror stories of some company implements a new ERP, does it too quickly, and I can almost guarantee you when there's a failed implementation, the timeline was too aggressive. There wasn't enough time spent on testing. There wasn't enough time spent on training. There wasn't enough time spent on mapping what the new process maybe is for people versus the old process. There maybe wasn't enough time spent up front gathering requirements and solutions. So they implement something that has a wrong process. It's just like all of those things can happen. But, kind of what we see a lot is people end up hating the system because somebody implemented and things went wrong or things don't quite work. And then the end users end up hating it. And they're like, oh man, this system sucks. I'm not going to use it. A lot of times we'll see people do things in spreadsheets instead of doing it in the system because they can't get the system to do it. And then they're like, I don't understand why I can't get numbers out of the system. Well, but you're doing them over here in the spreadsheet. You have to do it over here. So, it's that whole, there's so many things that can go wrong or that you can have happen or be the consequence of a failed implementation.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that back even before I was a beginning level consultant, back when I was in industry, I was on a project where we went through the whole go live process, and that the go live, a member of the IT team and me, a member of the finance team, ended up flying out to go rescue the warehouse who hadn't shipped in a month, and spent another month out there unraveling what had happened to make sure that they were shipping. So that was a great learning experience for how I never wanted to experience that again, right? To make sure that I knew what monitoring needed to be done, what questions should I ask that I hadn't asked back then before I knew better. So that was a great learning experience and a horrible thing for that company to go through. They were very much at risk with not being able to ship for an entire month because that was definitely a failed implementation. But even on a smaller scale, I see this a lot, especially with finance departments, where a company says, we're going to wait to design our financial reporting until after the go live. It's just not that critical, right? And so we often get the call the month after go live, we can't produce our financial reports and we don't know how, and the board needs whatever, right? Or the bank needs, or the insurance needs this. So having that, critical component where suddenly you get to do something under duress, that's a terrible thing. And you told me a story about a company who had to actually roll back to their old system at some point.
Yeah, I mean, and that almost can be worse because now you're trying to balance things out between the two systems. You pull the trigger, you lose a lot of buy-in by implementing something that doesn't work, and then having to say, "Oh, we're going to have to walk this back, and we're going to have to now do all the stuff in the old system, and we've got to get stuff kind of reevaluated between the two systems." And I was a part of this team. I wasn't leading the team. So it was interesting to be able to watch from that perspective, just how, the end users were kind of, it took another year and a half for that actually to be implemented and for it to actually work because, it should have only taken maybe 2 months to adjust and fix the things that were broken and then re-implement. But because of just the end users really were just not on board with doing it again. And even, there was some leadership that, some were on board, some were pushing for it, some were not pushing for it. And so there was just chaos across the business. So it took another year and a half to fix it, earn people's trust back, and then move forward. So it was not a good time.
Yeah, and you just said a very important word, trust, right? Yep. Violation of trust with that kind of stuff is the worst because once you lose your people's trust, we all know it takes a great effort to earn people's trust back. But the skepticism that raises with what the next project is and what the next change is almost more difficult than the initial loss of trust. Yeah. So we talked a little bit about how to prevent this, right? How do we, in a nutshell, in a 1-minute explanation, how do we avoid a failed implementation? And the thing that we really came up with was early detection of the situation. So what do you think of when you think about early detection of the situation?
I mean, I think it kind of goes back to communication. Mm-hmm. So it's making sure that you've got a plan, and trust me, in real life, the plan that you create on day one of the system implementation is going to change over time. Mm-hmm. So it's being realistic when things change and dealing with that. But I think the key is to constantly be checking in and constantly be making sure you're hitting those milestones. The system is performing the way it needs to do. Making sure that you have multiple rounds of testing and training built in to the project. I can't stress that enough. Yeah. Like, I know too many people are just like, you know what, I'm just going to do 1 round of testing. I'm going to do 1 round of training and we should be able to go live. But in the real world and in real life, we've all seen it, is you go through that first round of testing, you're always going to find something. Mm-hmm. I actually get scared when we don't. Yeah. Because to me, what that means is that people didn't try and break it hard enough.
Right.
Because it's almost impossible to have it perfect that first time, unless it's very simple. Like, we're talking like I'm moving from QuickBooks to finance, and it's just finance, and it's really a really small scope, right? But if you're talking like a bigger project and we're talking like manufacturing and WMS and all of that stuff, then I expect there to be, you know, anywhere between 25, 30% of things that you're going to find, because it's impossible to be perfect.
Yep.
So I think it's key to make sure that you have those checks and balances in place, and they're in place all along and not just at the end. So, you know, it's critical to be assessing where you're at and figuring out if you have a problem as soon as you can. And then, okay, how do we move on from here? Like, what is the true problem? Is it, you know, I think we talk about doing root cause analysis.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're starting to go off the rails, and maybe we're going through that first round of testing and the manufacturing process is totally messed up, it's not even close to what you do.
Mm-hmm.
It's, oh, wait, let's take a step back. Let's figure out what happened. Where did it go off the rails?
Yep.
And maybe somebody just interpreted one requirement wrong,
Mm-hmm.
but it was enough to send things totally in a different direction. So then it's like, okay, let's go back. Let's figure out why, but let's not dwell on it. Let's just move on. We need to figure out what the solution is and move forward.
Yeah.
And I think that's the key. Like, you know, make sure you acknowledge it, make sure you move on. Don't stop, you know?
Yeah. No, I absolutely. I think that that's critically important. I think one of the things that I like to incorporate, because I do a lot of training, right, with the different customers that we work with, is the show me, don't tell me. So I always want people to show me that they can do it in the system, because people can tell you all day that, yeah, I got it, I can do it, I'm feeling comfortable, I'm feeling confident, we're ready to go. But until I can see them show me that they can complete it, and not just in one instance, right, with a couple of different variations in complexity, that's really the early indicator for me that if people can't show me, then either they're not understanding it, they haven't trained it, or maybe it's not working.
Yeah. And I think we've talked in the past too about understanding how people learn, right?
Yeah.
So there are people that can learn in a classroom setting,
Mm-hmm.
and, you know, you can kind of do the interactive and all of that. And then there's other people that they just can't pay attention. They don't want to participate. Because maybe what they need to do first is play with it themselves.
Right.
So I think too, one of the things that you and I try and do on our projects is make sure we kind of have a range of different training.
Yep.
To make sure, and always making sure that there is an environment available for people to play with, even when you're not testing and training. Because I have found too, where people will discover things not working that way. Yeah. You know, it's like, you know, giving people permission to break the system sounds weird. And, you know, maybe that's more an IT thing. You know, really, I want you to break it because I want to find where we have the problems. And I'd rather do it now than when we go live.
Yep. Absolutely. All right. So one concept for you guys to think about with this episode: what is the feedback mechanism from your team to prevent this, right? Out of all the things that we've talked about here, what is the thing that is going to give you an early indication that things are not going right? And what are the questions that you need to ask that maybe you haven't thought of that will prompt that? All right, Kim and I are going to eat some Brie. So I am not going to heat it because I definitely cannot be trusted, but I have a gorgeous triple cream Brie here that I'm probably going to have with some grapes as a snack. And Kim, you have, what did you have? You had something a little different?
I have some fancy Brie with herbs, and it looks very, very nice. I don't know if you can see the little herbs in it.
Yep.
Yeah.
I really want to liquefy that Brie. So
I was a little scared. So I was like, I don't typically have Brie. So I was a little scared about attempting it, but I might later.
Yeah, along with Gouda, it's definitely one of my favorites. So, all right, we're going to eat some cheese, and we'll see you next time for the next episode, which is going to be what when you have planned doesn't work. We'll see you next time. I'm Kerry Peters. Thank you for tuning in to the Get Your New View podcast. For more episodes like this on YouTube, click the subscribe button and ring the bell to ensure that you get notified whenever new content comes out. If you're listening to the audio podcast, please share an honest review on Apple Podcasts. If you are ready to rethink today for tomorrow, look for the link below and contact us to speak with our expert team. You won't find the level of no-nonsense real-world experience we offer anywhere else, and we're here to put that experience to work for you. Do you think you could use more features of your software if you just knew how? Are you frustrated with inefficiency that never seems to get better? Did your team ever really get good training to understand how to use your business software? Do you suspect there just has to be a better way and you don't know what it is? We believe every company can benefit from increased efficiency and higher utilization of their software, and that it's possible to have fun while learning exactly how to do that. The experts at NewView Strategies work with frustrated Business Central and NAV users who struggle to use their system and find the answers they need. We teach them to truly understand how the system can support their business processes to make immediate and lasting improvements. As a result, they get more done in less time, make better business decisions, and even love their system. Please contact us at getyournewview.com to get started.